The end of the year is approaching very quickly, and as the final days come to a close, the year 2026 quietly opens before us. A new chapter begins, doesn't it? Not to make you run faster, but to pause, to look back, and to gently realign the direction of your life. In the teachings of the Buddha, life does not reflect our passing emotions. It reflects the way we see the world, the way we nourish the mind, and the quiet principles that guide our choices each day. Take a moment to observe yourself. How many times have we drifted through days, weeks, even entire years with the same old habits, the same familiar reactions, the same patterns of thinking that have weighed on the mind for so long? Not because we did not try hard enough, but because we lived too tense, too rushed, and too far away from awareness. What if, as we step into 2026, you do not try to rebuild your life, but simply learn how to live more correctly? In Buddhism, all true transformation begins with a very quiet decision. A decision to see differently, a decision to live with mindfulness, a decision not to let life carry you away in unconsciousness. Peace is not something we chase. It naturally appears when the mind is placed in the right position. And that is why these 10 principles were not created to force you to change, but to guide you and gently support you as you walk into the new year. Rule 1. When you care for your mind, life begins to change. Returning to responsibility for your own mind is the first foundation of all transformation in life. In Buddhism, suffering does not arise from the outer world, but from the way the mind responds to what is happening. When a word is spoken, when an event occurs, when something goes against our wishes, it is the mind that receives, interprets, and creates emotion. For this reason, taking responsibility in Buddhism is not about carrying more guilt, nor about harsh self-blame. It is about learning to look directly at the mind and recognize our role in each small reaction. Many people live their entire lives with the feeling that they are victims. Victims of the past, with wounds that were never healed. Victims of others, through words, actions, and unfair treatment. Victims of fate, with the sense that life is always working against them. When living this way, we often believe that the cause of suffering lies outside ourselves. And so we wait for the world to change before we can feel at peace. But that waiting often lasts forever, while the mind grows more and more tired. The Buddha saw this very clearly. He taught that the mind leads all things. The mind is the master, and the mind creates. This does not mean that the world is not difficult, nor does it deny injustice or loss in life. What he pointed out is that real suffering begins when the mind reacts unconsciously, when we are carried away by anger, fear, resentment, and restlessness. When the mind is not cared for, any circumstance can become a source of suffering. Taking responsibility for your mind is the moment you stop blaming the past. The past may have happened, but the way you carry it into the present is a choice of the mind. Taking responsibility for your mind is also when you stop blaming others. Others may act in their own way, but the emotions that arise within you are where you can return and offer care. And taking responsibility for your mind is when you stop attributing everything to fate and begin to see that in every moment, you still have a small space to choose how you respond. It is important to clearly distinguish between taking responsibility and self-blame. Self-blame is a form of inner violence, where you turn the blade of judgment toward yourself and tell yourself that you are inadequate, flawed, or unworthy. Taking responsibility is different. It is lighter, more awake, and filled with compassion. It is simply the acknowledgement that the mind is reacting in this way, and that this reaction can be cared for. There is no need to condemn, no need to punish, only the need to see clearly. When you begin to see that you cannot control your entire life, you also realize that you can still care for your mind. You cannot choose the circumstances of your birth, but you can choose how you breathe when difficulty arrives. You cannot decide the actions of others, but you can decide not to let your mind be swept away by resentment. This realization returns to you the sense of agency you once believed you had lost. In daily life, returning to responsibility for your mind shows itself through very small actions. When a message irritates you, you pause before replying. When a comment touches an old wound, you notice the sensations arising in the body. When a day does not go as planned, you do not rush to conclude that life is unfair, but instead listen to what your mind is needing. Each time you do this, you step out of the role of victim and return to the role of caring for yourself. Buddhism does not teach us to control the mind through rigid willpower. It teaches us to observe the mind with patience and gentleness. When the mind is angry, know that it is angry. When the mind is afraid, know that it is afraid. When the mind is tired, know that it is tired. Simply being present and aware allows the mind to gradually settle. From that settling, wisdom and freedom begin to appear. There will be moments when you forget and react according to old habits. This does not mean you have failed. In Buddhism, each time you realize that mindfulness has been lost is already a moment of awakening. You can gently return to the breath, feel the body sitting, standing, or walking. There is no need to fix what has just passed. There is only the invitation to be fully present with the moment that is opening now. From this present moment, you once again have a choice. Each small choice accumulates into a new direction of living. Gradually, you will notice that you react less, blame less, and experience more inner space. It is within this space that understanding and compassion are nourished. When the mind is cared for consistently, you no longer feel that you must fight against life. When you live while constantly asking why life treats me this way, you hand your power over to circumstances. But when you change the question to how am I responding right now, you bring that power back within. This is the most important turning point of transformation. It is not the world that changes, but the relationship between you and the world. From this foundation, the principles that follow can truly support you on the path of mindful and peaceful living. Rule 2. Slow down to see where you are going. In Buddhism, the Buddha does not encourage people to chase great ambitions or goals that keep the mind constantly tense. He did not teach that one must achieve something in order to have value, but he placed great importance on right direction. Right direction means knowing where you are going within the mind, knowing what is guiding each thought, each word, and each action every day. When there is no clear direction, people easily drift, even when they appear busy and endlessly striving on the outside. Many people set big goals for the new year. They want to be more successful, more capable, faster, stronger. But after some time, they begin to feel tired, lost, and unsure why peace still feels distant. It is not because those goals are wrong, but because they do not know what they are truly living for inside. Buddhism reminds us that when the mind lacks direction, every effort can turn into a burden. Living with intention does not mean you must map out your entire life in detail. It does not require grand goals or milestones that force you to pressure yourself. Living with intention is much simpler than that. It means slowing down to recognize where you are. It means living with more clarity to see what is nourishing the mind and what is exhausting it. And it means knowing where you are going within the mind, even when the outer path still feels unclear. There are people who wake up every day and rush into work, responsibilities, and relationships, yet have never asked themselves what direction they are living in. Day after day, they simply react to whatever happens without an inner anchor. The Buddha once reminded us that a person who does not know where they are going will become lost within their own life. This kind of lostness is not loud, but it quietly erodes the energy to live. Right direction in Buddhism is not about pursuing an ideal image of who you should be. It is a very conscious choice about how you wish to be present in life. You may not know exactly where you will be next year, but you can know what kind of mind you wish to live with. When the direction within the mind is clear, life naturally becomes more orderly, even when circumstances are not yet perfect. Drifting often begins with not stopping to observe. Without observation, we are easily carried along by the general pace of life, by the expectations of others, and by the fear of being left behind. But Buddhism teaches that each person must return inward to see their true motivation. Am I doing this out of understanding or out of anxiety? Am I moving forward from awareness or from fear? These questions gradually bring light to the mind. Living with intention also does not mean controlling every detail of life. On the contrary, it helps you loosen control over what is unnecessary. When you know what truly matters to you, you naturally let go of what no longer fits. You do not need to do everything. You only need to do the things that nourish inner steadiness. In daily life, living with intention shows itself through very small choices. You choose to listen instead of reacting. You choose to rest when the body and mind are tired. You choose to slow your speech when emotions rise. These choices do not bring achievement, but they bring stability. From that stability, you no longer feel as though life is pulling you along. A very gentle practice suggested by Buddhism is this. Each morning, before entering the day, ask yourself one simple question. What quality do I want to live with today? You do not need many, just one. Peace, awareness, kindness. When this question is asked, the mind has an anchor to return to throughout the day. If you choose peace, you will remember to breathe when tension appears. If you choose awareness, you will remember to observe when emotions arise. If you choose kindness, you will remember to soften toward yourself and toward others. That day may not be perfect, but you will no longer be completely drifting. Gradually, as you live with right direction each day, you will find yourself less lost, even as life continues to change. You do not need large goals to feel that life has meaning. Simply knowing where you are going within the mind is enough to keep you from standing still. And from that clarity, the path ahead slowly opens in a natural, gentle, and lasting way. Rule 3. You do not need to be fast. You just need not to abandon yourself. Diligent effort is a familiar term in Buddhism, yet it is very easy to misunderstand. Many people hear the word diligence and immediately think they must try harder, be more disciplined, and push themselves beyond their limits. But in the teachings of the Buddha, diligence is not about forcing yourself forward. It is about returning to yourself again and again with steadiness. When diligence is misunderstood, people fall into exhaustion. When diligence is understood correctly, people gradually become resilient and at ease. In modern life, many people live through constant pressure. They force themselves to do more. They force themselves to be stronger. They force themselves not to be weak and not to slow down. At first, this pressure may produce results, but over time, it leaves the mind exhausted, the body tense, and the joy of living slowly fades away. Forcing yourself is like pulling a rope too tight. Eventually, the rope will snap. Diligence in Buddhism follows a different path. It does not begin with forcing yourself to become someone else. It begins with returning to see where you truly are. When you know you are tired, you do not blame yourself. When you know you are unmotivated, you do not judge yourself. You simply acknowledge it, then gently return to what needs to be done. This act of returning creates lasting strength. The Buddha taught the middle way, a path that does not lean toward indulgence and neglect, nor toward harsh self-denial. This path reminds us that all extremes lead to imbalance. Diligence is the same. If you push too hard, the mind will resist. If you give up completely, the mind will drift. The middle way lies in walking steadily, without rushing and without quitting. Many people believe that in order to change, they must do many things at once. They must meditate longer. They must read more books. They must become perfectly disciplined. But Buddhism emphasizes that steadiness matters more than intensity. One small step taken each day will carry you farther than a short sprint followed by stopping. Diligence does not need to be grand. It only needs to be continuous. Look at very simple practices. Meditating for 5 minutes each day. There is no need for perfect posture, no need for a completely calm mind. Simply sit down, feel the breath coming in and going out, and be present. Those 5 minutes, when maintained regularly, Create a safe space within the mind. That space allows you to return when everything becomes chaotic. Or consider another very ordinary practice. Breathing before reacting. When a word irritates you, when a situation makes you upset, pause and take one deep breath. Just one breath is enough to create a gap between stimulus and response. Within that gap, you are no longer completely carried away by emotion. This is diligence in daily life. Diligence does not mean you never fall. On the contrary, diligence accepts that you will fall many times. But each time you fall, you return more quickly. You recognize it sooner. You do not remain lost in unmindfulness for too long. This gradually strengthens the mind, not through rigidity, but through flexibility. There will be days when you forget to practice. You will react according to old habits. You will become angry, sad, or discouraged. What matters is not avoiding these days, but how you treat yourself afterward. If you blame yourself, you are forcing again. If you gently return, you are practicing diligence. Buddhism does not measure diligence by perfection, but by the ability to return. Gentle diligence also means knowing when to stop. When the body is tired, you allow yourself to rest. When the mind is overloaded, you allow yourself to let go of some things. Rest is not giving up. Rest is part of a long path. A person who knows how to rest at the right time will go farther than one who never stops. In life, diligence shows itself in not abandoning yourself. You do not skip meals because you are too busy. You do not sacrifice sleep because of worry. You do not ignore your emotions because you fear appearing weak. Each time you care for body and mind in this way, you are nourishing a sustainable energy of diligence. Diligence does not need to be loud. It happens quietly, in small choices. You choose to sit down, even for just 1 minute. You choose to breathe instead of react. You choose to return instead of turning away. These choices may go unnoticed by others, but they build a strong foundation within. When you understand diligence in this way, you are no longer afraid of making effort. You are also no longer afraid of slowing down. You know that each day requires only one step. There is no need to do a lot. No need to do it perfectly. You simply need not to abandon yourself. Rule 4. What kind of mind is your environment nurturing? The mind does not exist separately from its surrounding environment. It is constantly influenced by what it comes into contact with each day, whether we notice it or not. For this reason, if we wish to live with more peace and awareness, choosing a supportive environment becomes very important. Environment here does not refer only to where you live or the people you meet. It also includes everything you allow to enter your mind each day. Many people believe that changing their thoughts is enough. But in reality, thoughts are deeply shaped by environment. When you are in a space filled with tension, the mind finds it hard to settle. When you are frequently exposed to negative words, the mind easily becomes restless. When the rhythm of life is too rushed, the mind has no time to breathe. So if you want to care for the mind, the first step is to look closely at the environment you are living in. In Buddhism, this relationship is called conditions. Every person, every situation, every sound, every image is a condition that influences the mind. Whatever conditions you stay close to, the mind gradually takes on their color. If you stay close to constant hurry, the mind learns to hurry. If you stay close to calmness, the mind learns to settle. This happens very naturally, without force. Environment is not only about people. It is also about the content you consume each day. The images, news, videos, and stories you repeatedly take and leave traces in the mind. If the mind is constantly surrounded by bad news, comparison, judgment, and pressure, then no matter how hard you try to be positive, inner peace remains difficult. On the other hand, when you choose content that is gentle, slow, and meaningful, the mind gradually softens. Environment also includes the words you hear. Not only the words others say to you, but also the way you speak to yourself. Words of criticism, blame, and constant pressure, when repeated, become a familiar inner voice. Buddhism reminds us that words carry great power. A gentle word can calm the mind. A harsh word can wound the mind for a long time. Choosing an environment also means choosing words that nourish rather than harm. Environment also refers to the rhythm of life you accept. Some rhythms keep people in a constant state of running after work, running after expectations, running after time. When you live in that rhythm for too long, the mind becomes accustomed to tension and begins to see it as normal. But Buddhism does not view tension as natural. It teaches that the mind needs space to stop, to rest, and to see clearly. Choosing an environment that nurtures the mind does not mean cutting off all relationships in your life. Buddhism does not encourage avoidance or extreme separation. Not everyone who exhausts you must be left behind. Not every difficult situation must be escaped. What matters is knowing how to keep distance from what makes the mind heavy. This distance can be external, but it can also be internal. Keeping inner distance means you do not let your mind be completely swept away by the environment. When you are near someone who judges, you recognize it and do not merge into it. When you hear a negative story, you listen but do not feed it further. When the atmosphere around you is tense, you remember to return to the breath. This distance helps you not lose yourself, even when circumstances have not yet changed. There are relationships you cannot avoid. There are environments you cannot yet leave. In those situations, nurturing the mind becomes even more important. You can create small pockets of quiet for yourself. A peaceful morning, an unhurried meal, a few minutes without holding your phone. These moments of quiet are like fertile ground where the mind can recover. Buddhism teaches that when conditions are present, results arise. If you continuously place yourself in conditions that exhaust the mind, exhaustion will appear. If you begin to choose wholesome conditions, even small ones, a sense of peace will gradually form. There is no need to change everything at once. Just change a little each day. One less piece of anxiety-provoking content. One more moment of calm. One less conversation that weighs on the mind. One more kind word. When you choose an environment that nurtures the mind, you are not becoming selfish. You are protecting your capacity to live with awareness. A person who knows how to care for the mind does not cause suffering for others. On the contrary, when the mind is constantly tense, suffering easily spreads to those around. So choosing your environment is not only good for you, but also for the relationships in your life. Gradually, as the mind is nurtured in the right way, you will notice that you are less easily carried away. You do not react as quickly as before. You are no longer exhausted by unnecessary things. You begin to feel the difference between what nourishes and what harms. From this awareness, wiser choices arise naturally. Choosing an environment that nurtures the mind is a quiet practice. No one sees it, no one praises it. Yet it is this practice that creates the foundation for lasting peace. When the mind is placed in a wholesome environment, the lessons that follow can go deeper. And from here, your path of mindful living slowly becomes clearer and lighter. Rule 5. Do not rush when the mind needs time. In Buddhism, transformation does not happen in a sudden burst or through a single moment of intense determination. The Buddha did not teach that a person must change their entire life overnight. He pointed out that all lasting change is formed through a rhythm that is repeated day after day. When we look back on our lives, we can see that what truly endures does not come from haste, but from small actions maintained with consistency. Many people begin the new year with strong energy. They want to change quickly. They want to see results soon. They want everything to be different right away. But when no clear shift appears, they become discouraged and give up. Not because they are weak, but because they place expectations too quickly on a process that naturally takes time. Buddhism reminds us that the mind, like the body, must be nourished daily. It cannot be forced to grow in an instant. Living steadily means living with a stable rhythm, without stretching yourself too far and without drifting completely. It is knowing how to return each day, even in very small moments. A mindful breath, a minute of sitting quietly, a a pause before reacting. These may seem insignificant, but when repeated, they create a solid foundation within. The Buddha often used the image of dripping water to describe practice. A single drop of water may not create immediate change, but when the drops fall steadily, day after day, they can wear down even hard stone. Transformation of the mind is the same. It is not one deep meditation that is enough. It is not one mindful day that completes the journey. It is the steady return, without interruption. Living in a rush keeps people constantly chasing results, chasing goals, chasing the feeling of progress. When living this way, the mind rarely gets to rest. Even spiritual practice becomes another form of pressure. Buddhism does not encourage this. It teaches that the path of awareness is gentle yet enduring. Gentle so that body and mind are not harmed. Enduring so that the path is not abandoned halfway. Living steadily does not mean doing more. It simply requires consistent presence. You do not need to meditate for long hours each day. You only need not to forget to return. You do not need perfect practice. You only need regular practice. When returning becomes a habit, the mind gradually becomes more stable without excessive effort. In daily life, living steadily is reflected in how you treat yourself. You eat regular meals. You sleep enough. You allow yourself to rest when tired. You do not demand that you always be strong. These create a rhythm in which body and mind are supported. When this rhythm is stable, external changes no longer shake you as easily. Buddhism emphasizes that returning every day is what matters most. Returning is not to achieve something, but to avoid losing yourself. There are days when you return clearly. There are days when you only realize that you forgot. Yet even that realization is part of the path. No day is wasted as long as you remember to return. Not needing to be fast is a very important reminder. In modern society, everything pushes people to be faster. Faster than others. Faster than who they were yesterday. But the mind does not operate at that speed. The mind needs time to understand, to release, and to heal. When you allow yourself to slow down, you are respecting the natural rhythm of transformation. Living steadily also helps you avoid being swept up by emotional extremes. When things are going well, you are not overly excited. When things are difficult, you are not overly hopeless. You maintain a relatively stable rhythm, so the mind has something to lean on. This support is not success or failure, but your consistent presence with yourself. You may not see clear changes in the first few days, but if you look back after a few months, you will notice that you are less tense, less reactive, and able to return more easily. These are signs that transformation is taking place. Quiet, unremarkable, yet very real. Living steadily rather than rushing is an invitation to return to a natural rhythm of life. A rhythm where you do not need to prove anything. No need to arrive anywhere. Just to be present, a little each day. And from that steadiness, a sense of peace gradually begins to form. Rule 6, knowing when to stop. Many people believe that good time management means being able to do more things in the same day. But in Buddhism, what matters is not how much you do, but how much energy your mind still has to live with awareness. When energy is depleted, even if you have more time, you still feel tired and empty. That is why this lesson is not about managing time, but about knowing when to stop in order to protect your life energy. Many people are tired not because they lack time, but because they do not dare to stop. They fear that if they stop, they will fall behind others. They fear being left behind. They fear that if they do not keep working, keep reacting, keep trying, everything will collapse. This fear keeps people in a state of prolonged tension, even when nothing urgent is actually happening. The Buddha taught that knowing sufficiency is true wealth. This teaching is not only about material things, but speaks deeply about inner life. When we do not know sufficiency, the mind is always demanding more. More tasks to complete, more things to pursue, more achievements to prove. But when we know sufficiency, the mind begins to stop. And when the mind stops, Energy is naturally restored. Knowing when to stop is not laziness. It is also not giving up. It is the clarity to recognize the limits of body and mind. When the body is tired and you still force it forward, the body will resist through illness. When the mind is overloaded and you still force it to endure, the mind will resist through anxiety and exhaustion. Buddhism reminds us that listening to body and mind is a form of wisdom. In modern life, many people have lost the ability to stop. Phones are always in hand. Messages are always waiting to be answered. Work never seems to end. And when there is no external task, the mind creates internal tasks through endless thinking. Gradually, people forget what true rest even feels like. One very practical practice of this lesson is stopping the use of your phone when it is not necessary. Not abandoning it completely, but knowing how to put it down when the mind is overloaded. Each time you stop for a few minutes, not watching, not reading, not responding, the mind has a chance to breathe. That brief breath, when repeated, can significantly help the mind recover. Knowing when to stop also means stopping an unnecessary argument. Not every opinion needs a response. Not every disagreement needs to be won or lost. When you realize that a conversation is tightening the mind, stopping becomes an act of self-protection. Buddhism does not teach us to always be right. It teaches us to keep the mind at peace. Stopping also means stopping when the mind is overwhelmed. There are moments when your head feels heavy, emotions overlap, and even small tasks feel difficult. In those moments, pushing harder rarely brings good results. What is needed is permission to stop, to breathe, and to return to the body. A few minutes of closed eyes, one deep breath, or one slow step can be enough to calm the mind. Knowing when to stop helps you avoid wasting energy on unnecessary things. When energy is protected, you work more effectively during the time that truly matters. You are also more fully present in important relationships. Stopping does not make you weaker. Stopping makes you more grounded. Buddhism views stopping as a natural part of the path of practice. The breath has an in-breath and an out-breath. The day has light and darkness. Every movement needs a pause. When you live in harmony with this rhythm, you no longer struggle against life. You move with it, more gently. At first, stopping may feel unfamiliar. You may feel empty or feel as though you are missing something. But if you are patient, you will realize that most of what you fear missing is not truly necessary for your peace. When you choose to stop, you are choosing what matters more. Knowing when to stop is an expression of wisdom and compassion toward yourself. You do not need to wait until you are exhausted to rest. You do not need to wait until the mind breaks to return. Each time you stop at the right moment, you are protecting your ability to live with awareness over the long term. And from that protection, the path ahead becomes lighter and more sustainable. Rule 7. Nurturing a wholesome mind. Many people think that living positively means always being cheerful, optimistic, and strong. But in Buddhism, nurturing a wholesome mind does not mean forcing yourself to be positive at all times. The Buddha did not teach people to deny negative emotions or pretend to be fine when they are exhausted inside. He taught something more realistic and profound, which is not to continue feeding the toxins of the mind. When these toxins are recognized and transformed, the mind naturally becomes lighter and clearer. Every life has difficult moments. There are sad days, moments of anger, periods of discouragement, and loss of direction. These do not make you wrong. What creates prolonged suffering is when these emotions are enlarged by repetitive thinking, by self-blame, by comparison, and by quiet resentment. Buddhism does not require you to eliminate negative emotions immediately. It simply reminds you not to let them become a permanent dwelling place for the mind. In the Buddha's teachings, the 3 roots of suffering are called greed, anger, and ignorance. Greed is attachment and endless wanting. Anger is resistance, irritation, and hostility. Ignorance is not seeing clearly, misunderstanding, and living unconsciously. These 3 are not moral failures. They are natural mental states when they are not observed and cared for. When they go unnoticed, they gradually become toxins that weigh the mind down. Nurturing a wholesome mind does not mean suppressing greed, anger, or ignorance. Suppression only pushes them deeper. Nurturing a wholesome mind begins with seeing them as they arise. When you notice greed, you do not blame yourself. When you notice anger, you do not judge. When you notice misunderstanding, you do not deny it. Simply seeing clearly is already the beginning of transformation, because the toxin starts to lose its power. Buddhism teaches that to transform greed, anger, and ignorance, we need to cultivate other qualities. These are loving kindness, compassion, and understanding. Loving kindness is the wish for yourself and others to be well. Compassion is the ability to feel suffering and not want to add more pain. Understanding is the capacity to look deeply to see causes rather than only surface appearances. These qualities are not distant ideals. They can be practiced in very ordinary daily life. Cultivating loving kindness does not mean always being gentle with everyone. Sometimes loving kindness begins with being gentle toward yourself. When you are tired, you allow yourself to rest. When you make mistakes, you allow yourself to learn. When you feel weak, you do not use harsh words to wound yourself. Each time you treat yourself with kindness, a wholesome mind is being nourished. Cultivating compassion is recognizing that others are also suffering, even when they make you uncomfortable. This does not mean accepting all behavior. It simply helps you not let anger take over your entire mind. When you see that others are reacting from their own pain, your mind gains more space. That space allows you not to react too quickly and not to create further harm. Cultivating understanding is a very important practice. Understanding helps you not rush to conclusions. It helps you see that your emotions do not appear without causes. They may come from exhaustion, from lack of sleep, from old memories being touched. When you understand this, you no longer treat negative emotions as enemies. You begin to see them as signals asking to be listened to. In daily life, nurturing a wholesome mind shows itself through very small choices. You choose not to watch content that increases your anger. You choose not to join conversations filled with judgment. You choose to stop when you notice your thoughts spiraling in a negative direction. These choices do not make you weak. They make you more aware. Nurturing a wholesome mind also does not mean that you are never allowed to feel sad or angry. Sadness and anger may still arise, but you do not allow them to control all your actions. You do not let one moment of anger ruin an entire day. You do not let one negative thought define who you are. This is the difference between natural emotions and toxins that are being fed. Buddhism reminds us that the mind is like a field. If you continually plant seeds of anger, the field becomes dry and barren. If you begin planting seeds of compassion and understanding, the field slowly comes back to life. You do not need to plant a lot. You only need to plant consistently. A little each day is enough. There will be times when you forget to nurture a wholesome mind. You will react harshly. You will say things you later regret. That does not mean you have failed. In Buddhism, each time you realize you have gone off course is already a moment of awakening. You can return, apologize if needed, and continue nurturing a wholesome mind from this very moment. Nurturing a wholesome mind is a long path. It does not bring quick excitement, but it brings deep stability. When the mind carries fewer toxins, you feel lighter. You are no longer pulled so far by emotions. You can stay with yourself during difficult moments. And from that staying, peace gradually appears in a very natural way. Rule 8. Learning to see life through wisdom. Learning is not meant to place you above others or to prove how much you know. The Buddha did not teach people to accumulate knowledge in order to compare or compete. He taught learning as a way to understand, first of all, to understand oneself. When you do not understand yourself, you tend to repeat the same suffering in different forms. When you understand yourself more deeply, life gradually becomes lighter, even if circumstances have not yet changed. Many people think learning means reading books, listening to talks, or attending courses. These things have value, but in Buddhism, learning is not limited to books. Learning also takes place within every life experience. Each day of living is an open lesson. Every situation you pass through carries something that invites you to look back and understand your own mind more clearly. Learning to understand yourself means beginning to observe how you react. When things go well, what arises in your mind? When difficulties appear, how the mind shifts? When you are praised, do you cling? When you are criticized, do you suffer? These reactions reveal a great deal about what remains unseen within. Buddhism regards this as the most valuable source of learning. In life, not every experience is pleasant. There are relationships that fall apart. There are failures that leave you disoriented. There are mistakes that bring regret. But in the light of wisdom, every experience can become a lesson. Not to blame yourself, but to understand. When you understand why you hurt, why you reacted, why you stumbled, you are less likely to repeat the same pattern unconsciously. Buddhism does not view stumbling as failure. It sees it as a reminder to awaken. When you stumble, what matters is not standing up as quickly as possible, but looking back at how you were walking. Perhaps you were moving too fast. Perhaps you were not paying attention. Perhaps you placed trust in the wrong place. When you see this, you learn something no book could ever teach. Learning through wisdom is different from learning through accumulation. Learning through wisdom opens the mind. Learning through accumulation can sometimes make the mind heavier. When you learn only to know more, you may become tense from remembering, comparing, and proving. When you learn to understand yourself, you become softer. You do not need to be right. You only need to see clearly. In Buddhism, wisdom is not intelligence in the ordinary sense. Wisdom is the ability to see the true nature of experience, to see that everything changes, to see that emotions arise and pass, to see that thoughts are not absolute truth. When you have this way of seeing, you are no longer carried too far by what happens in life. Learning to see life through wisdom is also learning not to rush to conclusions. When something does not go as you wish, you do not immediately label it as bad luck or injustice. You give yourself time to look more deeply. Perhaps it is teaching you a limit. Perhaps it is reminding you to adjust your direction. Perhaps it is offering you a chance to return and care for your mind. Not every lesson is comfortable, but every lesson has value when seen with wisdom. In daily life, learning through wisdom happens very quietly. When you notice tension and choose to pause, you are learning. When you see yourself reacting too strongly and choose to breathe instead of speak, you are learning. When you recognize an old habit that no longer serves you and choose to change, you are learning. These lessons do not come with certificates, but they change the way you live. Buddhism emphasizes that learning is a lifelong process. Not to become perfect, but to become less unconscious each day. When you think you already understand everything, learning stops. When you accept that you are still learning, the mind opens. This openness allows you to receive new experiences without excessive defensiveness. Learning to see life through wisdom also helps you judge others less. When you see that you too have been mistaken, confused, and fallen before, compassion arises more easily. This compassion does not make you weaker, it makes you deeper. You no longer see life in simple black and white, but through many layers of understanding. There are lessons you must encounter many times before they are understood. This does not mean you are slow. It simply shows that wisdom needs time to ripen. Buddhism does not rush this ripening. It only reminds you to be patient with your own process. Each time you see a little more clearly, wisdom has grown. When you learn in order to understand yourself, you are no longer overly concerned with where you stand compared to others. You care more about how you are walking your own path. That path may be slow, but it is real. And that truth gives you a sense of steadiness. Learning to see life through wisdom is an invitation to live more deeply with each moment, not skipping over experience, not running away from stumbling, not accumulating merely to feed the ego. When you live this way, each day becomes a teacher, And life itself, with everything it brings, gradually teaches you how to live with greater gentleness and awareness. Rule 9, learning to live in peace. Amid change, impermanence is not an idea meant for deep intellectual reflection, but a truth that needs to be clearly seen so the mind can become lighter. Human suffering does not come from the fact that things change, but from the desire for things to remain the same. We want this feeling to last. We want this relationship to stay as it was. We want this job to remain stable. We want ourselves not to age, not to weaken, not to change. Yet it is precisely this clinging that exhausts the mind. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent. This teaching is not meant to make people pessimistic, but to free them from resisting life itself. When you clearly see that everything changes, you no longer waste energy trying to hold on to what cannot be held. From there, the mind begins to let go naturally. Much suffering arises from relationships. At first, there is closeness, understanding, and sharing. Then over time, people change, needs shift, perspectives change. Feelings are no longer the same. When this happens, if you try to hold on to an old image of the relationship, you suffer. Not because the relationship is wrong, but because you do not accept that it is changing. Buddhism does not teach us to abandon all relationships. It teaches us to see them in the light of impermanence, so we can love without suffocating and stay without clinging. Work is another place where people often suffer because of impermanence. There are jobs that once brought you a sense of security, that once gave you stability and a feeling of worth. But then circumstances change, roles change, needs change. When you cling to an old state, anxiety and unease arise. Accepting impermanence does not mean giving up or becoming irresponsible. It simply helps you see clearly that nothing is guaranteed forever. With this clarity, you become more flexible and less afraid of life's movements. Even you yourself do not remain the same. Thoughts you once believed in may no longer fit. Emotions you are familiar with may not arise as often. Your body also changes day by day. Many people suffer because they want to hold on to an old version of themselves. They want to always be strong. They want never to be vulnerable. They want to always be in control. Impermanence reminds you that you too are changing. When you accept this, you become less harsh with yourself. Buddhism views impermanence as a doorway. When you see that everything changes, you no longer place your happiness in fixed conditions. You do not say that you will be at peace only when everything is stable. You do not say that you will be calm only when people stop changing. You begin to find stability within the flow itself. This is a profound shift in the way of living. Accepting impermanence is not living passively. It is living with clarity. When you know that an emotion will pass, you are not drowned by it. When you know that a difficult phase will change, you are not overwhelmed by despair. When you know that joy will not last forever, you cherish it more instead of fearing its loss. Impermanence does not take meaning away from life. It makes each moment more vivid. In daily life, accepting impermanence shows itself in very small ways. When a day does not go as planned, you do not rush to conclude that everything is ruined. When a relationship creates distance, you do not immediately see it as failure. When you yourself change, you do not rush to blame yourself. You see everything as moving, not as a fixed verdict. Many people fear impermanence because they think it only means loss. But in Buddhism, impermanence is also the condition for renewal. If everything remained the same, there would be no growth. If pain never changed, there would be no healing. If people never changed, there would be no deeper understanding. When you see impermanence this way, you stop resisting it. You learn to move with it. Some changes arrive gently. Some changes arrive powerfully. Not every change is comfortable, but when you have insight into impermanence, you are no longer completely helpless. You can pause, breathe, and ask yourself what is needed to move through this phase with the least harm. This is the wisdom Buddhism points toward. The Buddha did not promise that life would always be easy. He simply showed that when you clearly see the nature of impermanence, you no longer suffer as before. You do not cling to what has passed. You do not panic over what has not yet come. You remain with the present moment, the only place where life truly happens. Accepting impermanence also helps you judge others less. When you understand that each person is changing in their own way, you stop demanding that they remain exactly as they were in your memory. This understanding makes relationships lighter and less conflicted. In the end, accepting impermanence does not take away your sense of support. On the contrary, it helps you find support in a more stable place, not in circumstances, not in other people, but in your capacity to adapt and return to your own mind. When you are no longer afraid of change, you begin to live more freely. And it is this freedom that opens the path of liberation the Buddha pointed to long ago. Rule 10. When gratitude is present, life becomes lighter. Gratitude is not an emotion that appears only when life is going well. The Buddha did not teach people to be grateful only when everything is perfect, when material conditions are sufficient, or when suffering has disappeared. He taught gratitude as a way of seeing life. Gratitude for the simple fact that in this moment, you are still breathing. And that alone is already something very great. Many people believe they will feel grateful when life becomes more stable, when work feels less pressured, when relationships become easier, when they themselves are no longer tired. But while waiting for those conditions, the mind remains in a state of lack, lacking peace, lacking sufficiency, lacking contentment. Buddhism points out that if we wait for life to be perfect before feeling gratitude, we will wait for a very long time. Because life by nature always contains things that are not as we wish. Gratitude in Buddhism does not deny suffering. It does not ask you to smile when you are sad or pretend to be strong when you feel weak. Gratitude simply means seeing clearly that even within difficulty, there are still things supporting you. When you can see this, the mind is no longer completely submerged in a sense of deficiency. One very basic thing to be grateful for is that the body is still functioning. The body may be tired. It may feel pain. It may not be fully healthy, but it is still allowing you to live, still allowing you to walk, still allowing you to feel. Many people only recognize the value of the body when it has already lost part of its ability. Buddhism invites us to see sooner, to see while the body is still accompanying us each day. Gratitude is also gratitude for the fact that the mind still knows how to return. Throughout the journey of these 10 principles, you have learned to observe the mind, care for the mind, and return to yourself. Not everyone has that opportunity. Not everyone realizes that they can stop and breathe. When you are still able to return, to reflect, to listen, that itself is already a very deep form of sufficiency. Many people live their entire lives without ever returning to their own mind. They chase the outer world, responsibilities, expectations, and pressure until they are exhausted. The fact that you are here, listening, reflecting, and practicing is something worthy of appreciation. Gratitude toward yourself for not abandoning yourself. Gratitude does not make you passive. On the contrary, it allows you to act from a more stable foundation. When the mind feels lacking, every action carries tension. When the mind knows sufficiency, actions become lighter. You still work, you still make effort, but you no longer need to prove your worth. You act from understanding, not from fear. Buddhism sees gratitude as a doorway to sufficiency. Sufficiency does not mean having a lot. Sufficiency means no longer being constantly pulled by a sense of lack. When you can see enough in very small things, you no longer depend entirely on big achievements to feel at peace. A simple meal, a restful sleep, a deep breath, a slow morning. These small things can nourish the mind for a long time. There's a very gentle practice suggested in this lesson. Each evening before sleeping, recall one small thing from the day that you feel grateful for. It does not need to be something big. It does not need to be special. It could be someone who listened to you, a quiet moment, or the fact that you paused before reacting. Just one thing is enough. This practice is not meant to change your emotions immediately. It gradually changes the way the mind sees, When you repeat it each night, the mind becomes familiar with noticing what is wholesome instead of only seeing what is missing. This shift happens slowly but very deeply. It reduces tension and comparison. Gratitude also helps you look back at difficulties in a different way. Not to say that hardship is good, but to see how you move through it. Each time you pass through a difficult period, even imperfectly, you learn something. Looking back with gratitude allows you to remember not only the pain, but also your own resilience. Buddhism does not teach gratitude in order to erase suffering. It teaches gratitude so that suffering does not consume the entire mind. When the mind can recognize what is wholesome, even in imperfect circumstances, it becomes more flexible. This flexibility helps you remain steady as life changes. Living with gratitude also softens relationships. When you are grateful for the presence of others, you do not demand perfection from them. You appreciate what they are able to offer, instead of focusing only on what they lack. This does not make you complacent. It makes you more understanding and gentle in connection. Gratitude is not a destination. It is a way of living. There will be days when you forget. There will be days when the mind is too tired to remember. That is all right. Each time you remember and return, you are nurturing the seed of gratitude. This seed grows slowly, but once it takes root, it nourishes an entire life of inner stability. As these 10 principles come to a close, there is no promise that your life will become perfect, but something may begin to change. You may start to see that you are not as lacking as you once thought. Not lacking peace, not lacking direction, not lacking the ability to return. And when you live with that sense of sufficiency, life, even with all its changes, becomes lighter. Living with gratitude and sufficiency is the lesson that completes this journey. Not to end it, but to open a new way of living, a way where you do not need to wait for life to change before finding peace. You can begin right now, with this breath, with this very small moment. If you have walked with these 10 principles all the way to this point, you may already feel one thing very clearly. They were not created to give you more to do, more to push, or more to carry in a life that is already tiring. These 10 principles are simply gentle reminders, helping you slow down, see more clearly, and live more lightly with yourself. Not to change who you are, but to help you stop abandoning yourself in the rush of everyday life. In 2026, you do not need to become someone else. You do not need to prove anything to the world. You only need to return to yourself each day through a single breath, a moment of stopping, a mindful choice. When you know how to return, the path will naturally open in its own unique way. If you would like, leave a comment saying, "In 2026, I choose to live more slowly." You may also like the video and subscribe to the channel.